Welcome back or welcome to Fadilat Files.
Hey girl.
This is Fadilat. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a couple of tips and strategies for dating and relationships, more specifically for navigating them, especially in this day and age. They're really simple tips and strategies, and as long as you stay true to these tips and strategies, you will fumble in dating and you will fumble in your relationship from time to time, but at least you will be equipped with the tools and tips you need to navigate them successfully. So let's get started. Self-reflection. I've been in tumultuous relationships. My first ever relationship was in middle school.
Instead of you to face your book.
I don't really think I knew what I wanted at the time, but I knew that the girlies were getting into relationships. They had boyfriends. They were talking about what their boyfriend did for them, what they were doing with their boyfriend on the weekends. That was fascinating to me. I wanted to be in a relationship too. It wasn't hard for me to stumble into a relationship, especially because I desired it. So when it presented itself, I was all in there. I literally had no understanding of what a relationship was meant to be about. You know, how you were supposed to really feel in a relationship. If you don't have a clear definition and you haven't really reflected on who you are and what you want out of a partnership, you go into it blindly and then you go into it accepting BS. Before you get into a relationship, being mindful of what you want, of who you are, where you are in life, what you would like out of a partner at this place that you're at in life, and also how you would envision that partner being there for you, showing up for you, holding space for you as you move through the future, into the future. Self-reflection is critical at any age, and it's also critical once you're in a relationship. You need to self-reflect. You need to be really candid with yourself. My therapist, when I started therapy, while I was in my relationship, told me that I have a habit of putting on blinders. What that means is I have a habit of denying to myself what I truly value and what I really need in my relationship. And when you deny yourself of those things, you walk through your relationship without intentionality. And you want to be super intentional in relationships. It matters. Our childhood largely shapes the reasons why we are the way we are. When we enter dating at whatever age that is, you want to be extremely intentional about unlearning some of the unhelpful habits that we all have, such as putting on blinders and not really asserting ourselves and being true to how we feel. Self-reflection, again, is key number one. Constantly self-reflect and don't stray away from that which you have reflected on. I'm really stressing the importance of just knowing who you are, knowing what you want, and staying true to that. Don't lie to yourself. Do not deny yourself the right to have what you want, have what you desire, and the right to demand that from a partner. The next tip is being mindful that communication, especially in the dating phase, is not going to be perfect. Two individuals come together having been raised in separate families, separate family dynamics, with separate communication styles that you are exposed to from childhood. As a result of this, you and your partner might not really jive well on communication. And maybe in the beginning it's perfect, things are great, and that's cool, but it doesn't stay that way. My partner and I, he's avoidant, I am anxious. When a problem emerges, he is more likely to sort of distance and be quiet and shut down a little bit, and I'm more like, what's wrong? Tell me right now. I need to know because you're making me anxious. And that kind of like clash and conflict in communication can create more problems than necessary. But it's important to note that most people in relationships do not have the same communication styles or attachment styles. You're not likely to be in a relationship with someone who's also avoidant and you're avoidant, because when do y'all talk? And you're not likely to be in a relationship with someone who's anxious, because how are y'all really communicating when you're communicating off of anxiety? We are all going to encounter someone who might have a different communication style than we, and that goes for not even just relationships, that goes for workplace interactions and interactions in the world. What you want to do is find a way to build a bridge, to extend an olive branch, because both of you don't want to leave not having your needs met. If you are avoidant and you need some space to process your feelings, then your partner who's anxious, who might need to communicate, there needs to be some sort of tool, some sort of strategy put in place for you to figure that out. And that could look like just saying, I'm still processing, and I'd like for you to just give me a little bit of time, and I'll come back to you and I'll let you know. What the anxious person needs is reassurance in that moment. We need to know that you're not about to leave, You know, we need to know that you're not about to abandon us from whatever traumas we're dealing with. When you're in a relationship, you find ways to sort of compromise so everybody gets what they need out of the situation. Now, for the anxious person, if that person has communicated, do not then pummel them with more questions. Tell them you will give them that time. And put a time limit on it, because my partner was taking too long sometimes, and I ain't gonna wait a whole day now. We figured it out now and figured out what we can do to reassure the other person and give the other person what they need in that situation. In a relationship, communication is not going to be perfect all the time, but it can only get better. When you're dating, be very clear about what you need out of the other person's communication, because once you get into a relationship, you just build on that. That was tip number 2. Tip number 3, setting boundaries. Everybody says this, and I'm going to stress the importance of this. Set those boundaries. You deserve for someone to know what your boundary is early on, not trying to train them into understanding it later down the line. How can someone keep a boundary that you won't enforce? Sometimes I feel like what we struggle with is communicating the boundary. It's kind of like telling people no, and it's hard to tell folks no when you want to come across as either a people pleaser or you don't like confrontation. But you end up losing in the long haul. You end up feeling like the person doesn't respect you or doesn't value you. You want to set boundaries, especially early on. You don't have to necessarily worry about the person crossing them later down the line because you set them. They know what the boundary is and they know to keep it, and they know what the consequences of not keeping it is. Make sure there's a consequence to someone crossing your boundary, and that can look like, many things. Disengaging from a conversation is a consequence of someone crossing a boundary. Conflict resolution is the next tip. Conflict will come up. And sometimes in the honeymoon phase, you won't see any conflicts, but it's going to come up. And you want to make sure that you have constructive ways of dealing with conflict, not belittling each other or degrading each other and being nasty nice, but fighting fairly. My partner and I use the term fighting fairly a lot. And the idea of that is that you are not attacking the person, you are attacking the problem. It's hard sometimes to take the person out of the problem because my problem is you in this particular moment. But the reality is it's not really the person, it's the incident or the problem that offended you. And that person is not the problem, but it's about addressing it so that they understand how it began in the first place, why it bothers you, and how you can avoid it moving forward. Nothing's ever perfect the first time around. It needs constant reinforcement. The idea is that you are not being mean to each other. You're finding ways to still speak light and love into each other in conflict. That is important in dating and in relationships. I might be all off on my numbers, but I'm trying, okay? I didn't number them right on my notes. We only get better. Okay. The next tip, which is twofold, is understanding what your shared values are with your partner, but also understanding that our values change over time. Now, there's some core values that will not change or not likely to change, like trust and respect and honesty. My memory card was full, so I'm restarting. But it's okay. We move. Now, what I was saying is that, you will have core values that you are going to want to stay true to, okay? Do not waver on your core values, and your partner shouldn't either. Core values should align. They don't have to be perfect, but there should be some commonalities. If you value trust, your partner should value trust too. That should be a value. You should see it in their behavior and their action. If your partner values marriage, for example, and being married one day or being a parent one day, and you don't, or you do and they don't, and that's a potential issue too. Just waiting. With that understanding of what each of you value and where they align or don't, you should act based on that knowledge. Don't stick around a relationship if the person knows for certain they never want to get married or they never want to have children. Be willing to accept the possibility, if you do stay, that they won't ever get married, that it won't be an option. If you're okay with that, then move forward with them in love and light and kindness. Move forward in that relationship. But if you don't think you can actually deal with that, and if it is a deal breaker, if it's a non-negotiable, then you have to make the next step, and that next step needs to be in your favor. So don't stick around and find out that you'll never get married when that's something you want to do in a particular relationship. Make the decisions that are right for you. And people change. What people say they want to do, in a given year can change. I mean, think about your vision board. Has it been this, like, you always either added something or took something away every year? Or if you didn't, great. I love that. Maybe you're the type of person who changes less frequently, but I think naturally as human beings, we do change, and we should welcome change, because change is where breakthrough happens. Change is where we evolve. And so understanding that your partner might change in certain ways too, right? The way that you know them now might not be exactly the way you'll know them 10 years from now. So be willing to adjust with them, to grow with them, right? And that leads me to my final point, which I think is number 6. Support each other's goals. Do your best, right? Obviously, your partner shouldn't have a goal that would be detrimental to his or her health or detrimental to your relationship. Like, that's a red flag. You should be always willing to encourage them, to motivate them. And this is like vice versa. If you don't have a partner that's willing to invest or support you or encourage you in your goals, then you might want to reevaluate whether that's the kind of partner you want. You want someone who pours into you, who helps you, who encourages you, who uplifts you, who reminds you that you're capable. Make sure y'all are growing together and not growing apart. I know some relationships that end because they feel like a partner is like 3 steps behind them. They're not growing together. They're growing apart. Now, some of that can be a little like pompous and arrogant, like, oh, they're behind me. But if you don't feel like y'all are aligning on goals and neither of you can like help each other to bring you back up to, the same place or like get you back on the same page, then maybe y'all ain't growing in the right direction. You are not growing together. What do y'all think? First of all, what did you think about the tips that I offered, right? Do you find them to be vital? Do you struggle with any one of those tips, like maybe setting boundaries? Leave it in the comments. And what do you think in terms of other tips that I left out? There's so many tips, but what do you think I left out and should have either discussed more, or which one of the tips that I brought up or strategies do you think I could have elaborated more on? What do you think is important to add to this conversation? Thank you so much, first of all, for tuning into this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you were able to take something away from it. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and share with your friends. We all got friends who need a little message about how to navigate this relationship thing. This is a place for women who are in the business of growing and becoming their best selves. So tell them to come up in this space, and you too, don't forget to comment below. And I am looking forward to seeing you in the next video.